At Raincode, we're redefining tech in Bahrain. Uniting the nation's top tech talent under one roof, we blend expertise with Scandinavian work culture. Just like rain rare and refreshing in Bahrain. Our tech solutions are new, exciting, and built to spark change. With official government support, we lead with equality, with half our developers being female. Our mission, empower businesses, with cutting-edge solutions, fueling growth, innovation, and sustainability. Raincode, bringing fresh thinking to Bahrain and sharing it with the world.
What's up, man? How are you?
Chilling, man. It's a beautiful day.
Yeah, it is. It is. Actually, it's really hot outside.
I was here all summer in Dubai, so this is getting towards winter now for me. So this is a big relief, from the 50-degree days. So.
I was hoping I came this time around.
Yeah.
Around October, because everyone's like, the weather's going to get better. Since I've been here, it's not gotten any better. Maybe it's gotten better to you guys, but it's not been very good.
It's all relative, right?
Yeah, no, I guess it's relative.
Well, it'll get better and better. We've got to wait like 6, 7, 8 months more of good weather now, so it's
that is pretty sweet though.
It is very
while
sexy.
The rest of the world is freezing.
It's the best time, Anyway, thank you for coming out today.
Of course, thank you.
So how do I introduce you, my man? Here we go. I'll do my best, and you tell me what I miss. All right?
Yeah. Okay, go for it.
So we go, buddy, here, Abdo, serial tech investor, right? Or should I say serial innovation investor? Because I don't want to just throw it as just tech, because your focus is really more on things that are propelling forward industries, right? Yeah, technology is a huge core of that. Technology, AI, space, all sorts, from Type 1 VC, right? You invest in companies like, SpaceX, Klarna, OpenAI, very major dogs, QB Tech, as you mentioned, and all these other propelling, very major, spearheading major industries, and I appreciate you coming out today, because I love to see how we could, pick that big brain of yours, through the experience and, the involvements that you had in your personal passion journey and stuff invested in, with all the inside scoop that you got.
Well, I'm gonna be selective in the inside scoop because
okay. Thank God it's not live.
no, I really appreciate it, and hopefully I could share some some insights or things that are interesting to you guys and your audience.
Amazing.
So I'm excited. Thank you so much for having us, and thank you to Raincode and everyone.
No, absolutely. First question I'll ask you is, why the hell did you even get going in the first place?
Well, that's a long-winded answer, but I'll try my best to shorten it. I think when I had sold my first business, I got into thinking about just what I wanted to do, honestly, afterwards. And I realized that in selling a business, I was introduced to the world of investing, just as a byproduct of trying to create something that was. So I started a media and entertainment, essentially product integration company, and I sold it to a private equity group. And then when I went that direction, I realized, I'm like, who are these people? The bunch of guys got together, said, hey, we want to buy your business. They buy it from me. They probably made 15 times more money on it than I did. And I was like, I want to know what you do. Right. Yeah. So I was like, that sounds like an interesting value proposition.
Wrong job, right?
So then I went to go work in private equity. And I think that what I realized in just doing that is that there's fundamentally there's so many. It gave me such a unique visibility on supply chain, right? And it gave me such a unique visibility in industry and how it's developed, and how, companies that were family owned transition to privately owned, that transition to publicly owned companies, and then really thinking about the value that all these companies provide to different industries. Some sit behind many industries, some sit specifically are built for a specific task. And then it got me thinking about how technology plays a really big factor into this. And really what I came to believe is that a majority of these businesses that I was looking at and buying for crazy amounts of money with these private equity groups inherently will have no value in the future.
Okay.
And the reason why I say that is I think it was very evident to me on an individual level that thematically technology was going to disrupt the majority of these legacy businesses. And in fact, almost 85% of them, in my theory, would be completely obsolete. So that's where the interest in technology developed. And then specifically technology is broad, it's just as saturated, right? If you look at marketplaces, if you look at software, if you look at all these different industries, like there's a lot of noise in the market.
Of course.
So ultimately, when I got involved and Type 1, the reason why it was such an exciting thesis is because we're looking at the integral infrastructure and hardware that needs to be built.
Skeleton.
Yeah, the skeleton. We're going deep down into like what is fundamentally the most essential, and the rest of the world will build off of over the next 20 to 50 years, whatever it is.
That sounds incredible because I mean, when you really think about it, right, those are the ones that actually stick around, because then everyone else, the entire ecosystems get built around that, and then the relevance just stays, right, for
100%.
For almost forever.
I think about it as like the utilities of the future, right? And that's what I kind of like. If I am looking at a company, if I'm looking at an investment, I'm always thinking about how will this be relevant above all, or how is this enabling a whole new ecosystem of technology that's going to benefit from it, right? Because these are platform companies. SpaceX, it's a platform company.
100%. 100%. It's so funny because people don't actually understand. I mean, I feel like there are three kinds of people, right? Those who just see the brand, see the hype, like you were talking about the 75% of your buddies who see the utilizing the outcome, they can see it out there, but they haven't really taken that step in. Then there are those who are actually, I'll say, the builders or midway builders, if you may. And then there are those like you who see the full picture, right? Who get in and left. And this is just very encouraging because from our conversation even yesterday on how we, a short conversation yesterday, there are a lot of individuals who are young, middle-aged, old, different industries, like you said, the public family offices, going to private office and all that, and making that transition, right? And I think a lot of times it's going to be, I'll imagine if somebody else is out there watching this, they'll want to see, okay, how do I actually transition, right? Which you've done, right? Going from private equity, the investment structure and all that, and going from the getting to be the one that sold off the business to wanting to be the guy who bought it off and 15x'd it, right? Now, if you were going to talk to a little kid out there, or not a kid, but a person out there who had that desire to transition, what would you say would be the core underlying schematic they should look out for, or they should try to accomplish as metrics on their path to do that?
Yeah, I think, well, it starts with the problem they're trying to solve, right? I think I talk about this very often, and really anytime I publicly speak, I think the first question I ask a founder or someone who's going to build something is like, why you? Right? What about this problem stuck out to you that you said, all right, I have to build on it? Yeah. Because though we have many success stories of people that have, like Elon, right? For instance, he's got so many different businesses. He's created like a whole ecosystem for himself. Like, that is a really rare scenario, right? And I think while I think there will be more Elon Musks over the like way more than we've ever seen over the next 20 to 50 years, I think it's really important to understand why that person has a specific vocation, and what that really comes down to me is like, what inquisitiveness does that person have towards the problem that they're trying to solve? So it starts with understanding the problem, and I think if I were to look at someone in their early career or youth or anyone, I would say, have some level of criticism towards the infrastructure and the things that are being done around you.
Fair enough.
Allow yourself that judgment, and then focus on thinking about a solution for it. Don't just bitch and complain about it. Yeah. It's oftentimes like the
bitch and do something about it.
Yeah, it's like I've been listening to debates about Middle Eastern politics all through my trip in Dubai this month, right? And the whole time I'm there, I'm like, we could argue about historically what matters to what person or what belongs to what person, but guys, why do we give a shit about this anymore? Absolutely. Right? Why do we give a shit about this? How do we fix it? And the thing about it is that it's almost like human nature to sit in the complacency of things and just criticize. But rather doing that, allow yourself a little bit of that, but make sure that you're thinking about what's the other end of it. What is the solution that you're going to create? And that could go with personal interest. Like, a lot of personal interest drives people's inquisitiveness. That turns into finding problems. A musician going into music production realizes that all the software and all the things that exist are outdated or nascent,
and not even compatible.
Yeah. I mean, like the invention of Spotify, right? Just thinking about like how annoying, the legality between Napster and but also the bottleneck of the record labels and just kind of sitting in between. So the greatest inventions to me have been people that are genuinely inspired by.
Just essentially find the problem, sit on it, and figure something out.
Yeah. Yeah. Maybe that was a long-winded way of just saying.
I don't want to make you feel like you just wasted 2.5 minutes rambling.
Yeah, no, I
think it's so critical that you hear the how, right, in detail, because even if you just over summarize it, but just go in one ear and out the other ear, right? So I think it's pretty critical how you laid it out, because that you still simplified it anyway further. So that's good. Well, I mean, I'm just imagining myself to be in the shoes of an 18-year-old kid who's probably watching Iron Man right now, right? And seeing Tony Stark on the front of that magazine, which is fiction.
Yeah.
And just trying to be a Tony Stark, and what was graduated from MIT at 14 or 12 or whatever bullshit they put in the movie, whatever. And thinking, how do I go from being this kid, or even a middle-aged adult or a younger adult, thinking, how do I don't want to go as far as say, how do I become an Elon, but how do I get to those ranks? Because, I mean, most people don't have the money. I mean, how do you get the value, right? You build something, you have the money to buy something, or you connect people to stuff together, right? And I'm thinking now, if somebody like that was going to want to accelerate from wherever they are to, say, for example, to you, right? A Jackson out there, if not a black kid, whatever, but a Jackson out there wants to be an Abdo, right? But doesn't have the money for it, doesn't have the major resource for it, probably has as basic or general enough information as possible, but nothing as crazy technical as you would have. How would you advise that person to get involved, and how resourceful, or what kind of resourcefulness factors should they look out for to embody or get access to then make the transition to become someone like you?
Yeah, I think I think it's scrappiness, honestly. I think that my story's very unique in the sense that even my first business came about of just being opportunistic within my dorm room at USC.
Can you talk about that? Or?
Yeah, I can. I was attending the University of Southern California, and when I walked into my buddy's dorm room, his buddy Sharif, who was my partner, was this incredible VFX artist, right? Okay. And the problem that we encountered, because I want to shorten the story a little bit, but the problem that we encountered is in my conversations with him and many film students at USC was very clear. The school took your money. They didn't let you control the content that you created, and they essentially own all the content that you create because they lend you the facilities. And I thought to myself, dude, we have Instagram, we have TikTok, we have all these at the now we do, right? And it was just obvious that that's the direction. More so YouTube. It's like, why are you waiting to create? Right. So the problem to me was the honestly just very, very micro problem in the film school. And so I was just like, hey, I'll be like the business guy. You're the creative. Like, let's start a company, and we're just going to get people to pay us to create content for them and brands. And now YouTube is this huge platform. Let's get them to let's get brands to convert dollars into content so that we could create it.
Guess what? UGC
we make money on them sponsoring the content, and then we make the content because we have a creative agency as well. So it was just like this really fluid, like immediate micro problem that I saw in the community of people that I was surrounding, and then I built off that. I think, again, it comes to that awareness. It's like situational awareness. Who are you? What is your circumstances? Despite your socioeconomic background, because I didn't come from a family with money, even though I get highly criticized sometimes that it seems like I did.
I mean, you do look like a trust fund kid.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
No offense.
I walk around like one. I think it's just my swag. No, but I think it's very easily. And once you get in a position where you have some resources, people assume that there was some leg up. But
it's always like that.
Yeah, it's always like that. But ultimately, I did that because I want to give my kid the leg up, right? I want to give my family the leg up. That's what inspired me. So ultimately, it's that situational awareness that I think is critical in understanding the problems around you. And then I can't tell you the steps of building a business. I can't do that. I can't tell you how to be Elon because I'm not Elon. And even if you asked Elon how he's Elon, he probably doesn't know how he is either. He's just like, dude, I got really obsessed with payment systems. I built PayPal.
So it's a combination of many micro moments just came together.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think it's more importantly, situational awareness.
Of course.
Be aware of your surroundings.
It's funny you mentioned what's scrapping, because when you think about it, right, talk about raincoat, right? For example, trying to utilize young talent, and then of course taking connecting that in one little library to people who are in need of the AI developments and all kinds of things like that. And the more I think about it, I mean, there's so much synergy across everything, right? Between what you're doing right now through your first, with Sharif, your first company, in dorms, and just taking advantage of whatever little resources are there, and I think that makes a lot of sense, because I think a lot of people try to overcomplicate things, and they're trying to get too scared to actually just make a little leap where they can just make it a very micro first step. Because, for example, if you have a large company that wants to actually develop, an AI structure, things like Raincoat change the game, right? Because then you have structures where they just go in there, take advantage of that without even worrying about, the complexity of building the team, getting the right, efficiency and all that. And I think there's just so many tools out there and so many ways, that people can really take advantage. And you guys spearheading that a lot. Especially on the AI front.
Yeah, and I think there is this like unique opportunity where you have, the establishment of the large language models, which is really the natural processing that we're seeing, natural language processing that we're seeing. And I think what's so nice is these large language models have educated people of the value of AI. AI has been around for a very long time, or the theories and the papers around it, and then very similar to like what happened with SpaceX, where government after the Cold War was just like, or after the shuttle system just ended, they're just like, we're not going to invest in space; it's no longer valuable. We're not worried about Russia. The U.S. isn't, whatever. That dynamic changed. Same thing happened. This guy named forget his first name, but John Lighthill, I think, wrote a paper in the early 70s that said AI is not important. And I think a lot of it was funded by the UK government. And what happened is just a complete shut on it's just a blackout period until the early 2000s, right? Where more paper on AI happened. And what you're seeing is that this is a concept that has existed in science fiction, a lot of things, for a very long time. And now we're actually applying it. Yeah. And then the second layer of that is now you have all these companies like Raincoat that could take the large language models and fine tune them for specific tasks. Yeah. So now you have this amazing Google search engine type feature like ChatGPT, which was a really clever way of getting audiences to understand, like critical mass, to understand how AI is going to ultimately disrupt things. Yeah. And then now you could leverage a lot of those platforms to create really interesting solutions for whatever your business needs are. Yep. And then that's where you have these like native AI apps or companies that are essentially utilizing AI or should be utilizing AI. Because I think the real opportunity is not that transition over. Software. A lot of softwares are becoming obsolete.
Absolutely.
So
it's just micro optimizations, really. How do you just take this, flip it a little direction, and see how it goes in the long term, right? And it's funny you mentioned the actual whole international debacle between Russia, America, whoever else is involved. And we're talking about this earlier, right? About how the Nordic countries are spearheading things crazy. I mean, you've invested in quite a few companies out there, right? Klarna and a bunch of the other guys. And it's incredible how much value comes out of, I mean, you've got Skype, you've got Spotify, you've got Klarna, and tons more, value coming out of the Nordic Scandinavian countries, and I think there's huge potential there.
I think definitely, we have our partner, Sanjeev, runs most of our Europe, phenomenal guy. Yeah. But we think about Europe a lot, and a lot of the strong suits, I think, is academia. There's a ton of really interesting research that has spun out. Yeah. Even though Sanjeev, Lighthill was British, I believe. So that's
Sanjeev, that was shade, just in case you weren't.
That was absolute shade. So he cut. So the Brits are the reason why we don't have AI for 20 years. But no, the idea, I think, is that there's an incredible amount of research and academia that can spin out of the Europe. Yeah. I think where there's friction points is that their scalability there's just two different forms of doing business. Yeah. But one of the really interesting countries that we've seen a lot of technology develop, and they seem to have this like critical mass hyperscale mindset, is Sweden. Oh yeah. And so we've done a lot of work. Obviously before Type 1, I invested in Klarna at a previous firm. And then I did a lot of work around a few other companies, how I met Andreas at Raincoat. And then I think where I'm also seeing like a big shift is two of some of the most interesting AI partnerships and collaborations on the OpenAI front are two Swedish companies.
Yeah.
Spotify, they're doing this really interesting thing where they're doing translation. They're doing like a translation integration. So they're essentially allowing podcasters to translate with their same voice in all different languages.
Yeah.
And
That's just
it's
fucking
automated
incredible.
and it's like instantaneously.
Yeah.
So that's a really interesting collaboration. They've done a ton of work with Klarna on really two fronts. Is they've completely integrated their customer services to be run essentially AI APIs off of OpenAI. So they have those prompt engineering responses. Whether it's fine tuned or not, I don't know. But that's kind of the relationship there. And apparently, it's saved them tens of millions of dollars, if not 50 plus millions of dollars in profits. And then you have, I think, them helping with an AI assistant across marketplace. So now you go on to Klarna's app, and then you could see how your pricing for this product compares to other prices.
References across the
It's just like, I mean, think about think about all the times we used to scour. There used to be this brilliant app too, I think, called Honey. That I loved, which would just sit on the side of your Google Chrome or Safari or whatever, and every time you're shopping, it would kind of price compare to if there's another place you could go to.
Damn it. I wish I knew
but it's
about
like,
that.
but imagine how seamless that is. I mean, it's
and Klarna is holding pretty much a lot of the data because everyone's still routing through them.
Yeah, and it knows the the quality of your customer, so it knows like
big time,
and it's solving for huge financing issues for a lot of people. So if you're looking to make a big purchase, but yet you still want to save on that purchase, then that's really interesting. It also differentiates a lot of these like micro lending platforms for so long were very predatorial. And I think what's interesting, and in the sense of they like add a percentage to whatever you're buying, this is one of those ways of saying, hey, not only are we going to lend to you, but we're going to get you the best deal. And I think that's actually huge.
It's a win-win for everyone.
Yeah, it's a win-win for everybody. And Klarna will have to figure its way of monetization, which it's fine. They'll figure it out.
Probably pissed at the small guys, but like you were talking about, right? A whale or shark and a tadpole. So I think the big guy's going to be perfectly fine.
Yeah. I think and I think that's ultimately just the unfortunate part of business and capitalism, right? It's like
you don't make the rules, you're just playing the game.
Yeah, you're playing the game. And also people it's also people. People want things more conveniently. Yeah. Amazon wouldn't succeed if people didn't want it.
Oh, 100%.
Right. And so 100%. You have to ask yourself a question at some point. It's like the world is, the world, like everything we have known to perceive value has been because people perceive that value.
People always choose.
Yeah. People choose one way or direction.
It's always the individual attention that's now catapulted together and just fully merged together. And then when it's assembled, then it becomes true value. Otherwise, if a user isn't going to, everyone's tried to be Facebook before Facebook. Yeah. There was I was supposed to say SpaceX. I keep forgetting the name of this bloody thing.
Which one?
MySpace.
MySpace.
MySpace, High Five, and all these, crazy guys from before. But then it really comes down to what people choose. Where attention goes, that's where the value grows. Yeah. Right? So I couldn't agree more. I mean, that's pretty incredible when you put it all together, because when you have companies like Raincoat putting it together, the innovation and removing all the bullshit, all the HR headache, all the madness, the mess, the knowledge and expertise requirements, it almost feels like nobody has an excuse.
No, if you've had a business that's, and I was talking to Andreas about like where I see a lot of value in Raincoat is like if you have a business that is sitting on years of data, just years of really unique data as it pertains to their specific product and services that are offering customers. Yeah. Then having customer data and all of these things, you have a really, really unique opportunity right now to transition that into like a fluid workflow or a fluid sales cycle or something. Just leveraging large language models, leveraging other like AI native apps that exist. Yeah. So a solution to help companies do that faster is only going to grow. Obviously, I'm a key stakeholder. I want more and more people to rely on AI. But I also see it because I know that if these things exist, I could build things faster. My companies, my founders, everyone in my organization.
Everyone wins, really.
Yeah, like everyone could build faster. Yeah. We're so boggled down by inefficiency. And so many people have taken advantage of that, right?
Of course.
In businesses where we as the end customer are suffering because there is bottleneck after bottleneck in supply chain.
And it's always human based. Traffic on the streets, efficiency with delivering any kind of product, whatever it is. Like I feel like over the past 12, 13 years, I've been downsizing and downsizing and downsizing human workforce over time because there's always more efficient agents and all kinds of structures coming in place. Because why would you want to deal with, no offense, of course, but an organism that gets pregnant, makes excuses, and doesn't want to work after barbecue hours?
Yeah.
You know, it's just the way it is.
I think the reality is like you're going to allow people to focus more on parts of our brains that I think that haven't been utilized,
and are very human centric.
Yeah. Also, I think like Bill Gates said this recently, and I don't know where, and I'm pretty sure it's Bill Gates. But he was talking about like the as we adopt more and more AI, work productivity shifts. People are going to spend a lot more time going after the things that I was earlier talking 100%. About. Their inquisitiveness. People need more leisure time.
Creative energy is going to be more.
Creative energy is really going to happen. And then where I think and then Chamath was talking about this, and Chamath is the founder of Social Capital.
Okay.
He was talking about something, I think on the Joe Rogan podcast, he was talking about how there's a really interesting need for teachers, but in a different way. Like the next generation of teachers are going to be really, really important. The way that's going to take form is teaching judgment, right? Teaching skills that are not, because like, listen,
that's a critical thing.
And Tarek, my partner, talks about this too, where he says like, you know, whatever, 30 years ago, we never thought we'd have a calculator in our pockets as quick. Now we have literally lethal algorithms on our wrists.
Yes.
Right? That can tell us more about anything instantaneously. And that's only going to get faster.
Of course.
But then it becomes like, okay, how do you curate that volume of data? Right? Over the last 10 years, we see diarrhea of content. Sorry, I don't know if that's explicit.
That's not the best choice of word, but we get the picture.
But we see a diarrhea of content. I'm going to keep saying it. Diarrhea of content. We have this, crazy amount
Thank
of content.
you for putting that picture in my head. Appreciate your very generous favor. Bloody hell.
We have a crazy amount of content.
I can't wait for this to get done now. Just kidding.
But we have just like a unique access of content, right? We had all these platforms that existed, uploading and instantaneously. I mean, it's hard to curate.
Oh yeah.
So with the world of disinformation, with the world of things that we're seeing, how you have this fight for people's attention and information and how they read it.
Yeah.
It's like the most important thing that we need to do right now is teach people how to use judgment in consuming the content that they're doing. And I think teachers will, and I agree with Chamath completely, that teachers will need to start thinking about that and thinking about how you digest information, what information you just, how do you validate it?
There's so much out there. I mean, like Einstein says, right, question everything.
Yeah.
You know, when it was asked, why are you such a genius? Like, I'm not a genius. I just question everything, and I try to sit on the problem as long as possible. And that's one thing, when I go on social media and I see the comments that people make to what is clearly bullshit, to what I think is a common sense, sensible human brain, I'm like, this is really alarming how much lack of critical thinking there is. I don't want to say critical. Critical thinking just sounds so geeky, and so how much lack of thinking there is.
Yeah.
Basic thinking. It's literally a matter of, now it's like I say, right? Journalism is first to get there. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. Now, like we talked about earlier, right? We can complain about that, or we can capitalize on it.
Yeah.
And quite frankly, I'm almost giving up on the idea of trying to actually make the human race better or smarter, because people are thinking less and less, and they're trying to rely on others to do it for them, right? And that scares me more. I've got a 9-year-old son. You got a 3-year-old boy, right? And when I think about the future of what he's going to grow up in, I think it's going to get to a point, again, this is my opinion, where AI would have to police us and themselves, because we're going to get lazier. AI doesn't get lazy. It doesn't have any bad workout days. It doesn't sleep, right? Yeah. Server's going to be running 24/7, round the clock, interconnecting across all geopolitical locations, crunching all the data and information, the high-level machine learning, and then we are literally going to become the inferior species. It's a matter of truth, whether we like it or not. I mean, there are a billion Hollywood movies to prove this theory. Let's hope we don't end up in an iRobot hypothesis, right? But
yeah, listen, I see it more of like if it goes down the wrong way, like the wrong path, then definitely we're just a bunch of sardines and everything is like, we're just like, where do we get our next meal, right? No, I think I there's parts of it I agree with. There's parts of it that I think that comes down to what I like. My point across about this is just like, as technology advances, as society adopts it more, we need to remain pragmatic about our judgments, right? Because if it gets carried away, which we've seen it has, right? If we allow agenda and we allow too many people to we could control and manipulate in a way that we've never seen happen before in the past. It is a new form of propaganda. It is a new form of tools to create propaganda. So how do we just create better humans that aren't going to use these tools for the wrong reasons, right? Because ultimately, as a progressive, that's our big threat. And I think it comes down like you said, I have a 3-year-old son. I think about like, okay, how am I going to, and I don't have the answer to this whatsoever.
Me neither.
Right? Like I don't have the answer. So I'm not going to act like I do, but it's how am I going to curate to the best of my ability some balance in his life. Right. And there's this interesting concept in AI that existed. I think it's generative adversarial networks. And the idea was you had new data going into a network, and then that was called the generator, and then you'd have you'd have another network that was combating it, essentially trying to see if that network, identify whether or not that network is of data is true
as
or
an
not.
active query system.
Yeah, and it created an active query system that created a balance in between. And we're gonna kind of need that on a human level, right? Where we have this infiltration of information that's always gonna be exposed
the diarrhea of them.
But then the diarrhea of content, and then we need the
Just throws you off balance every time.
What is the analogy? What is the medication you take for diarrhea?
Imodium. You want the African one, or you want the
you need the Imodium of content to battle act that. This is going a really crazy direction. I love coffee.
Yeah, I think it's all we got right now, to be honest. But I get what you're trying to say. Yeah.
The Imodium of content needs to exist so that we can counteract the diarrhea of content. Yes.
Oh yeah. No, I think it's as Emerald Tablet said, as above, so below, as within, so with that. I think there's always going to be that law of equilibrium and balance, where whatever tilts to one side, there'll be an opposite and equal force on the other side to at least attempt to counter it, right? And I think it's just a law of nature. Like, we can't influence that. Whatever we do, there can't be too much of good. And there's only one side because there's an opposite side, right? We only appreciate the snow because it gets really fucking hot in the summer, and vice versa. When it rains so much, we appreciate the dry sunny day, right? So I think despite the fact that there are lots of potential worries and, fears and concerns, I still think that ultimately there will be those who are thinking like you and I, where it's a matter of, okay, we've seen how far this can go, we've seen how negative it can be, but there'll always be those potential Power Rangers or Robin Hoods that would, and this could be digital Robin Hoods and Power Rangers or actual, human form, that try to create those counterbalancing systems so the pendulum just keeps swinging back and it's just not stuck on one side. So I think I'm pretty hopeful. Actually, this is more like an inshallah. I hope, kind of hopeful that things will play out.
It's a questionable term in this side of the region.
Yeah. What's the direction that you see, an online direction that you see for Type 1 and you guys?
Yeah, definitely. I think, so we have a big thesis in space. So about, roughly 40 to 50% of our time is spent thinking about the evolution of space and those technologies and how that's going to impact Earth, but also becoming an interplanetary species, a big focus of ours.
Yeah.
And I'll just be very quick on identifying that Type 1 is inspired by something called the Kardashev scale. Okay. So the Kardashev scale was created by Dr. Nikolai Kardashev, and the idea was creating a mathematical equation that allows us to identify technological advancements in society. And in theory, we're at a 0.72 civilization, and the idea is to achieve that Type 1 civilization.
Gotcha.
And so that is in our view, 100+ year goal. And so how do we take that 100-year vision, keep it as like a center focus? It's like Elon and SpaceX with Mars.
Yeah.
Keep it at a center focus and deconstruct what the integral technologies and infrastructure that we need over the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah.
And we build strategies for like the next 10 years. So here are the next generation of companies we believe are going to get us closer to that larger goal,
Yeah.
which is ultimately what a type 1 civilization is. And, you know, there's many different ways of explaining it, but for us, and to keep it short, is extracting the sun's energy, using it sustainably, controlling it here on Earth, and then 2, becoming an interplanetary species, being able to explore past that. That's why things like AI, that's why OpenAI, that's why SpaceX are critical companies for us, because though it's always exciting to be a part of the big dogs, I think about how this is creating a platform for our early stage efforts, right? How are we digging up the most unique, interesting early stage companies that are going to get us closer to that goal?
Yeah.
What I'm able to do by making an investment in OpenAI or being involved in SpaceX in some capacity is understanding how those, you know, these are anomaly companies that in the world of, you know, millions of startups that across the globe that are trying to aim at technological improvements, these few companies have succeeded. And now they've hit critical mass, and you have a company like OpenAI where you have 100 million users adopted in something like 2 months.
Yeah.
And you have, you know, revenues in the billions generated over a small period of time.
Yeah.
Well, now I need to understand, okay, how is this company going to evolve? What are their next steps? How are they going to unlock new improved products for the rest of industries, create value on top of what they're building? And then how is that going to affect the rest of the supply chain? And what else do we really need? So then you start to think, okay, if this company is going to continue to grow at the rate that they're growing year over year, how do we think about, you know, what is going to be necessary for that to even be achievable, right? What supply chain?
Yeah.
So you look into compute, you look into the transformation of GPUs, you know, access and all the different types of semiconductor chips that are out there, right? You think about, and you start peeling the onion back even further. You start thinking about energy consumption, energy alternatives,
Efficiency and all.
and efficiency. Ultimately, your sources of energy and how that's going to change and improve.
All right.
So then we look to find the most interesting startups and invest in those companies based off that. And then with space, it's similar. It's like you see what Elon did like 2 weeks, I don't know if it's a week or 2 weeks ago, I'm lost in time. Yeah. But he landed, you know, a Starship.
About a week ago, got caught.
Yeah, he caught the Starship. Yeah. That is like the most insane thing we've
ever
seen.
I think the average person probably doesn't understand the significance of that. It's like, well, it's cool stuff. No. You know.
You are unlocking more payload capacity than we've ever seen. You're dropping the price. Once he successfully launches a couple of those a day and does that over and over again, you now have dropped the cost and the unit economics to go up to space, which means you're going to start seeing a lot of infrastructure being built up there.
Sure.
You and I will be doing a podcast up there, right?
Easily.
You will get to lunar faster. You will get to hopefully Mars, right? Yeah. That's the big one. And I think Elon is trying to make it very clear that, you know, these things are possible with the innovations that he's after. And I think the more important part for us is that we're looking at the next generation of technologies. And, you know, SpaceX is only going to be able to do so much, right? Ultimately, their focus is Mars. I think it's a great focus. Okay, who's going to provide infrastructure? Who's going to create connectivity, right? That in space connectivity. There's some businesses SpaceX will tackle on, but there's other opportunities that exist. So how do we help those founders get to that place? Yeah. And that's ultimately why these big dog companies make a lot of sense for us, because it helps us really inform our decision making and how we could fund the future of companies. So we invested in Grok, which is the LPU. As technology and the demand of natural language processing increases, it's putting a lot of stress on the existing GPU and semiconductor chip markets. And Jonathan Ross, who I'll be with next week in Riyadh, he is building what he calls an LPU, which is a language processing unit. That allows, that focuses on inference, which is essentially the best way is the compute needed for language models, right? Yeah. When you prompt OpenAI and you say, hey, tell me what Raincode does, question mark. You click it, then it's processing and in real time making really quick decisions, like microsecond decisions to process how it's going to respond to you. That process between you asking the AI something and it giving you a description is called inference.
Of course, absolutely.
Right? That is, the demand is insane.
Oh yeah,
right.
And I feel like what NVIDIA's doing with the GPUs is they're merely tweaking as compared to creating from scratch.
Yeah.
For actual LPUs.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong, GPUs and NVIDIA, like
they do well.
That's huge. But those are parallel systems. They're doing a lot of things that doesn't mean, like, sometimes complexity doesn't mean a faster solution.
No, it actually could be simpler.
Yeah. And so I think what Jonathan and a lot of other companies are doing in the space for inference specifically are deconstructing these multi-core systems and thinking about more of a single core process. How do we get to A to B for inference faster, more energy efficient, lower latency, all of these things. So you're seeing a lot of momentum in that area. And so, that wasn't something I would have acknowledged right away. He had a lot of investors that saw that trend very easily. We kind of came in a little later, but we know that, oh, wait a minute, that this is, in our findings from, looking at open source large language models, from our findings in OpenAI, Anthropic, all these companies we've invested in, we're seeing, okay, inference is a big deal. Getting the new currency in this is how fast can you get tokens out? Right? Per second. So I don't know. I'm going on a lot of riffs here, but I think
it's very clear. What I really love is that we're talking about things that are pretty technical, but laying it out in very simple, next to layman terms. So I think anybody, it's not going to be only us, the geeks, that watch this and be like, yeah, that makes sense. I think the regular guy who is really trying to get that basic foundational, fundamental understanding of things can see, oh shit, that actually makes sense, right? Because when you think about it, a Formula One car is not meant to go do groceries with. Right. It's built for one thing and one thing only, and that is where you have the maximum potential output. Right. So instead of you having a Porsche Cayenne, where you can go fast and you can go grocery, go off road, and all that, those complexities, as you mentioned, really always add payload weight. As compared to just oversimplifying and then just getting a maximum streamlined output. So I'm all about simplicity as well. I think that's where you really get maximum what I call evolution capacity, because when you simplify things and that thing can really concentrate, laser focus, and then it can evolve much faster, because everything else that we have right now is just too complex and too busy with too many things. The evolution is now slow. But when you now have each component of the system, fully laser focused, things can really evolve. And then now with the data processing speed that we have, we can take the data from this, and then evolve it, accelerate that very much.
So a really, really interesting parallels, actually. It's the way the human brain, like, we're learning more about the human brain because our brain's essentially a neural network, right?
Yeah, 100%.
And we're learning more about the human brain than I personally think we are from building on AI than we would just like going into the brain itself. And I've invested.
Ironically.
I've invested in a company like Neuralink, right? So I see this quite like fascinating. A lot of data extraction from both ends that create like interesting knowledge, or interesting like results for us to kind of read upon. But you're seeing this on an industrial level, like the industrial complex, where you have a lot of legacy industries that are completely boggled down by inefficiencies in the supply chain processes and everything. And you're seeing more and more, like, the opportunities that I really like, the companies that are exciting me right now are companies that are taking a new approach to an old system, and they're converging all the existing technologies that we have, whether it's space-enabled technology or it's just AI or infrastructure or, advancements in semiconductor energy, whatever it is. They're using all these types of robotics and things to create a more interesting, sustainable product for an industry purpose. And so there's a company I invested in that I'm super excited about. I talk about this company all the time. It's called Kubi Technologies. And the reason why I like this company, it's a really good example of something very practical as the end product, which is a house. They're literally building homes for people. And the way they're doing this is that they're building micro manufacturing systems. Right? These manufacturing plants that are transportable, you could deliver them anywhere in the world. And the idea is that you could build homes effectively where you take most of the raw material and you put it in a single source factory that then distributes the home and a kit of parts to the location that it needs to be.
Yeah.
And if you create a system that's intricate, that's advanced, that has many iterations of designs, you could technically solve for, you know, like homelessness. You could solve for a lot of these home shortage problems.
Huge. All the
Right.
social economic issues that we
Yeah,
have.
and the idea is like you build a network of factories all over the United States is one of the bigger markets right now. You build a network of these factories, and then you and I could go on our website. We, you know, have many different types of homes that we want. We buy the land, and for a fraction of the cost, we could build a home.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Think about the solution that is. Now, people don't benefit. There are certain hands that don't benefit from that type of inefficiency, and that's a social political challenge that every company that's disruptive in nature are going to deal with.
Of course.
And I think that is where I'm most excited of this is that I'm really excited investing in the next generation of technologies that are getting rid of these chaotic moats for people, that are feeding the hands of people that are taking advantage of the consumer, the people that actually need these resources.
Yeah.
I think I'm really after investing in technologies that are reinventing systems so that they just completely make those systems obsolete.
I know it's crazy, right? Because it seems very logically the sensible way to go. Because you already have the traffic, you already have the demand, you already have the existing volume of people, users, quote unquote, simple terms, users. And these users are clamoring and begging and crying from the inside for more efficiency, right? More efficiency, faster delivery, better cost. That's what every user wants, right? So bringing those efficiencies into these existing systems, which again is just the improvements, can go, like I say, right? You put two objects 1 degree apart. At 1,000 kilometers ahead, it's two different locations, right? So I think that really is one of the that's one of the most critical things anybody could do. Because what the hell would anybody want to reinvent the wheel when you can just tweak it? And a lot of what people are doing, right? A lot of things is add more portability, add more data access, and just simplify things. It really is simplifying the most complex of things that really take things further, right? When Facebook was first invented, what do we have? A profile picture, social status, married, single, in a relationship, whatever it was, and just connect with friends. And then from there, of course, all the complex. And then Facebook, as a using tool, got derailed a little bit when it got too complex.
Yep.
You know, so I think when things stay simple, because right now, what do you have ChatGPT? It's a prompt. Okay, yeah, you got the APIs and all the enterprise mode instruction, all that. But the simplicity is it's a search engine. Google, nobody cares if Google is blockchain powered, Web 2, Web 3, Web 4, Web 5, whatever is going to come in the future. Yep. All anybody cares about on the user side, right, is there's a simple search bar there. I get the simple output I want. And I think simplicity is a heavy mode. So I really align with what you're saying in regards to the culture of what Type 1 really, I mean, it's funny because you already answered my potential next question on the underlying factors and components that you guys look out for in Type 1 when you invest into stuff, you know, and with the core and then being at a skeleton point of value, of the value chain, right? So.
And the other thing is what's so unique, I think we got bored of the Google structure. I think it was very inefficient.
Yeah.
I love Google as a company, and it got me through all of my academic career. But I think
academic career is that what we're calling it?
Yeah, exactly. Whatever it was. I think that the multi-modularity of ChatGPT is what makes it really unique, right? Is where
absolutely,
you and I could throw this podcast in there, right? We could render documents, we could put so many things through that and ask it to do things, prompt it to do things as a relationship to the subject that we're going after. And obviously we have to be careful of biases and, you know, the how we're generating ideas from these prompts. But ultimately, if we could keep some level of balance there between safety, governance, and all of these things, and continue to build the multi-module like approach to these language models, I think there's a huge benefit to humanity.
I mean, it goes back to the query system you're talking about, right? There's got to be, everything must have accountability at some point, at least a checkpoint. and every single system is built that way. Whether it's penetration testing, or in this case, beyond just a cybersecurity penetration testing structure, it's got to be actual integrity. I think something more important than security penetration testing is integrity testing, as I like to relabel what we spoke about. At that point, then now it really all comes down to the governance model and structure. Who's policing the integrity parameters, right? Which we then have to have that power individually, because your desires might be different from mine. My potential outcome expectations might differ from yours, right? So having the ability to create those policing systems would then allow us really have those parallel, and I think like Zoc was talking about the other day, where he doesn't see the possibility or envision the ideal world where one person builds everything. Yeah. We all have to get our hands in. And that's where, as you mentioned earlier, that spread will accelerate the evolution of what we have going. So yeah, I'm pretty excited for the future with this.
Yeah, it's a super exciting time. I think that focusing our energy back to like your earlier point. If I'm looking at my son and I'm looking at a lot of our the newer generation of folks that are going to be entering the workforce after all this productivity tools have been introduced and things, I think it's going to come down to judgment. It's going to come down to being being able to leverage this level of technological advancement to continue to build off of it.
100%.
Because we still have this really unique opportunity to explore the unknown with space. We have this unique opportunity to continue to learn more about our oceans. Everything, right? And I think that we should spend our time solving those massive technical hurdles. And a lot of the inefficiencies that exist now are more, we've created things, like any system, it starts complex, then hopefully over time it gets simpler. It simplifies. So I think we're at this really interesting crossroad.
Absolutely. Ever heard of a guy named Jacques Fresco?
Why does that sound very familiar?
I think it's an American futurist. Initially kicked off as, actually started as an architect, and then much like you, towards the Type 1 civilization as we spoke about, he saw or envisioned and drafted out, talking decades ago, a very almost like a utopia, if you may, but a perfectly harmonious society, both a society that is efficient in the present and then scales to become more efficient and adapts to the resources. So it's very interesting that you actually have that name Type 1, because it's up until now, this is the first thing you've actually explained to me today, that the reason why you have that name. But I think it'd be very beautiful for people to actually understand and see your opinion on the vision flow between now and 5, 10, 15, whatever, 100 years from now, how that Type 1 society will look or will play out.
Yeah, listen, I wish I could take credit for it, but my partner Tarek coined it and kind of that
cheers,
inspired Tarek. Cheers. Listen, even when he pitched me Type 1, right? It was kind of like this really unique platform, right? I see us as being truly a platform. And listen, the steps are complicated, but I think if you look at the relationship dynamic between our portfolio and what we're trying to achieve, it's pretty clear that right now we're building the first layer. The first layer to us is space accessibility. When it becomes so normal for us to see these rocket launches,
it's like another Tuesday.
It's like another Tuesday. Which, by the way, we're already. I think the statistic is we shoot 2 to 3 rockets a week right now. And I don't know how much China and other countries are doing.
I mean, collective in the world, it's huge.
Yeah, it's huge. We're seeing rockets go up all the time. Now, when we start seeing Starship level of payload capacity go up on a daily basis, 5, 10, 20 times, then we know, we're seeing, it becomes as normal as seeing a freight truck just move right by us, right?
Yeah.
In those freight trucks, you have cargo of material and things going to some other industry that's building something somewhere in the world.
Oh, yeah.
That's the first step, is we start getting a lot more infrastructure in space. And then the other advancements that need to exist is energy, right? Is focusing on what is going to be that next source of energy for us, right? What does energy look like in space? We invested in a company called Argo Space, where they're building, they built a water propulsion system as a prototype. But the idea is that we believe, we know that there's water on the moon and everywhere on the moon, not just in south or north of it. And the idea is that we're going to bet that water becomes one of the most important fuel systems or fuel sources in space. And if you create and if you do it correctly, it could be cheaper to get water from the moon or water as a fuel system and use it as a propulsion throughout your different orbits.
Yeah.
And so, but we don't get there until we get to lunar. We don't get there until we get people in space in those things. So in order to actually get to that 100-year vision, we have to the best of our ability, and we will be wrong. In fact, we probably be wrong 80% of the time. But when you fail fast, you iterate faster.
Absolutely.
And you get to a conclusion on what needs to be done to get it there. And so our idea is like, SpaceX makes a lot of sense. They have the clearest and most reliable form of transportation to space right now, right? It is the railroad to space.
Yeah.
And now we need to build the next layer of it. We're very involved with the Axiom Space. They're building space station infrastructure. That's going to be the platform company, in our opinion, of all the different space station work that needs to happen, the research. Maybe we're housing energy in there. We're doing data centers, whatever it is. That starts to build next.
Yeah.
The other thing is nuclear. Is it nuclear fusion? Is it nuclear fission? I'm still personally conflicted on it. I'm starting to think nuclear fission modular solutions could be really interesting in space, right? Where you think about energy, think of it as like towers.
I mean, you're only labeling nuclear because right now that's the inference of relativity that we have.
Yeah,
it might be plasma. It could be something.
Yeah, it could be a material off an asteroid, right? It could be thorium. I looked at a company in my buddy Talal and those guys invested in it, but I think they're using thorium, right? Which is just a chemical compound that could create energy way more efficiently, and it's way more available, right? So you look at just different materials or resources that could be used, and because we're in that mindset right now, that's where we have to focus now. And then you build that, and then you just continuously build on top.
Yeah.
And so my theory right now is we're doing exactly what we think we need to be doing to get to that longer term goal.
Yeah.
And if you look at our portfolio, you'll see that, right? And the AI side's really clear. That just plays to efficiency. That just helps us build these larger infrastructure projects faster. It helps us educate people faster. It helps us do all of these things, healthcare faster, right? Everything to get there. Hopefully, on the longevity side, hopefully human performance increases. Hopefully we're living longer. Hopefully we're using AI. I know OpenAI, I think it's Snowfi, one of the larger pharmaceutical companies. They're leveraging, they're building, whether they're fine tuning or using OpenAI APIs, I have no idea, but they're using it for drug discovery, right? AI could essentially do that for us.
100%.
So what happens is that AI becomes a tool for what I believe the Type 1 vision is, which is building the next generation of infrastructure, getting us to becoming interplanetary, harnessing our energy. AI becomes a workflow tool for that larger vision. Yeah. And we just keep working at it. We keep building homes faster. We build a more efficient Earth. We move onto our low Earth orbit. We build infrastructure there, create cities, right? Create cities in orbit, then the next orbit, then the next orbit, and then we move on from there. Mars, lunar, have facilities there. So I really believe in that future, and I think that's why this platform, Type 1, and what my partners, Tarek and Sanjeev, what we're all doing is super exciting. What the whole team is doing, really. Daniil, Gustav, all of them.
It's good.
Yeah.
Sounds pretty dope. It's like a promising future.
It's a promising future.
Hopefully we'll use less words like diarrhea, but I think there's hope for the future.
It's a real problem. That's a real problem.
Diarrhea is a very big problem. For sure.
But yeah, I don't know if that was helpful of understanding it, but we're excited about it.
No, for sure. I mean, it's one thing I really love about how this conversation went was the fact that, I mean, we spoke about this yesterday, right? Where we try to not geek out too much and go crazy terminology. So I think what I can envision is that anybody who's going to watch this, can really see a very simple, relatable their version of this complex world, because let's be honest, it is fucking complex. Yeah. What's involved, the backhand complexity and the R&D that goes on beyond Neuralink and SpaceX and all kinds of stuff. It literally is, there's always say it's not rocket science. It is really fucking rocket science. Yeah. Space is and what they're doing. So I think seeing that I think a lot of people get very scared in taking a step or a leap into getting involved with all these complexities, because then it just seems so, oh yeah, this is out of my sphere, and the whole understanding is just out of the world. But then being able to see, I think conversations like this need to be had more, where someone like yourself who's very deeply buried in can lay out in layman terms to people and see, guys, it's actually not as difficult as you think to play a role in it. And I think that's one thing where the whole world, I mean, on whatever scale is possible, needs to take a little more involvement, interest, right, into being able to play it, no matter how minor of a role it is. And the role could be as minor as educating yourself, right, and being able to just utilize, because you said it's a collective, we're a collective organism, right, and it's a collective growth and evolution, where if you better yourself and he better himself and she better herself, we all eventually better ourselves by association, almost like osmosis, right, and that I think is the best thing, where you win, they win, everybody wins. So I think it'd be a huge thing where the world could really improve itself by just 1% more education, you know, in a fraction of time. So
I think so too. And I think, hopefully our generation and future generations understand that a lot of the inequalities in the world, a lot of the things that exist are human made, right?
Yes.
And if systems are used correctly, there's an opportunity for everyone to win. And I don't oftentimes I don't want to feel so disassociated from like the real problems here on Earth, which are just poverty and inequality and a lot of things that exist. But I see that as just such a byproduct of human corruption and
Human
things
nature.
that
Can't change
it's
that.
just like there's a lot of things that are so embedded into that way. But I see humans as a system to some capacity.
Absolutely.
And I think that in any system you have errors, you have malfunctions and things like that. But I hope that as generations go by, less and less people are motivated by the oppression of others, and they're more motivated by on the greater like exploration.
And it's ironic because I mean, I couldn't have said better than that, because when, even to those who are greedy, I always say, if you get better, you make more money, and if I can ensure that it happens, I benefit better. Yeah. Right. So even those that want to tax more and they want to take more out of people, or they want to, and it doesn't have to necessarily financial tax, financial gain, but if everybody around you gets better, you get better. It's a very simple, I mean, I like to think it's a very simple concept, so I really hope that that's the case too.
I think so. And I think it might not be our generation. It might be 5 generations from now.
Absolutely.
There's really like we're building technology at such a rate where there's no reason that everyone shouldn't benefit from it, and become key stakeholders in each other. And one of the things that you brought up is like, I'm not a science guy, even though it might seem like I am, right? The reality is I lean on a network of really, really clever people.
Oh, absolutely.
Because everything we're building now is multidisciplinary. It's no longer become like, you just need one engineer doing one thing. One PhD could tell you how everything's done. It's just not like that anymore.
Absolutely.
Maybe AI could do a pretty damn
and
good
again,
job.
because it is a combination of many others.
It's the convergence of all these things that is creating this opportunity. So my advice to people that are intimidated by that process, just ask somebody. It's okay to not know. It's okay to not know. And I think a lot of people get insecure about not knowing something. Yeah. Right?
Yes.
And it's like, I am this, if I'm not investing in a company where I am the dumbest person in the room, then I'm not investing in a good company. Yeah. Right. And I try to keep it that way. So
it's very simple. I think should be a religion people should follow.
Yeah. Just be the stupidest person in the room.
Surely. No, man.
Hey.
All good. Appreciate you taking the time, man. I hope
absolutely.
This can really bring value. I'm sure it will. And I just hope it could bring a lot of value to a lot of people, especially as you mentioned, those who are intimidated by whatever, and let the information just sink in, just let them make a little step and build a better world.
I hope so, man. And thank you so much for your time today.
I appreciate you taking the time.
It was great. It's a great pleasure, man.
Thank you. Good to see you.
Yeah.